Hello and welcome back to AWANI, and today we take a closer look at one of the Malaysia's biggest challenges in innovation, which is turning great ideas into real, measurable impact. And joining us now is Matthieu Vanhaecke, the Group CEO of Cradle Fund, the agency that's powering Malaysia's early stage startup ecosystem. And he oversees major national efforts from My Startup to Startup ASEAN, and now a renewed push to help corporates adopt technology faster and more effectively. So Norman, thanks for being with us this morning in the studio.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope you're doing well. And we want to talk about why innovation education has been such a challenge and how big the program, the Bengkel Inovasi GLC, is designed to fix it. So to start our discussion today, when we talk about the big program, right, the Bengkel Inovasi GLC, what is the real problem that it is trying to solve in Malaysia's corporate innovation landscape as a whole? Please.
Thank you. Well, I think we've heard a lot of this about Malaysia's innovation, research that are pretty much stuck in the laboratories or stuck with new startups who can't really penetrate the larger market, the corporate market right here in Malaysia. So the big program is to address that just very specific gap, that execution gap on how we bring lab to the larger market. So how we do this is that, I mean, Malaysia already has all the ideas, the talent, the research, the technology and everything, right? So what we do is try to match what the corporates are looking for with what the early stage innovators are already having. So by combining this, then we can come up with new solutions that not only propel the GLCs or the corporates' innovation forward, but also gives that opportunity for innovators to sell their ideas and hopefully in the future come up with new ideas that can further propel even corporate innovation. So the big program is there to catalyze corporate innovation within Malaysia. That's the main idea.
But looking at the allocation, like there's 15 million ringgit, which is tied to this program, the big program. So how is this amount, how is this money meant to be used? And why is this approach actually significant for ensuring real outcomes that we can anticipate in the future?
Yeah, in some perspective, you know, in the world of innovation, people would probably look at 15 million ringgit, or if we were to divide it into US dollars, probably even less so, right? Doesn't look like much. But let me tell you this, even from the first inception that we did last year, the 1.0, the commitment from the corporates is actually double what the government has put in. Now that is very, very encouraging. And it shows the trust and the belief from these GLCs as to what we are trying to aim for, which is that to catalyze the larger corporate innovation within Malaysia. So this is just the first cohort. We're going to go into the second cohort, and hopefully more and more corporate innovation will then sprout out throughout the whole of Malaysia. And that is the impact that we're looking for. That small seed investment into this area can hopefully bring out a larger and more vibrant activity of innovation throughout all levels within Malaysia.
I want to go back to your previous answer, if you don't mind answering on, because you mentioned about gaps, right? So even through awareness, funding, also talent pipelines, so why do you think Malaysia still faces this persistent gap?
I think it's more towards knowing what we are all capable of. It's that awareness part, I think, because those who are in the area would know that, okay, this is what we're good at. You know, like ourselves, Cradle, we've been around for 20 years. We know we've been involved with a lot of startups, right? And we know what they're capable of. And from the corporate perspective, they know what they're good at. They know what they need to go further and beyond. So it's all about just bringing the two together, I think. So I myself was from the corporate world as well. So I know that there's not a lot of interaction with the early stage startups or the innovators in Malaysia. But there's such a treasure trove that we have actually, that is like pretty much kept well hidden, and if we can just like activate that and imagine the wonders that we can build. And even from this first cohort that we had in 2025, the impact that can be created goes far beyond even the initial problem statement that were laid out by the 8 GLCs that were selected actually.
So this program, BRIC program, comes into play to actually help to collaborate the government, whether between the GLCs, PLCs, or the companies under MKD.
That's this year's version.
Amazing. Okay, so we've seen innovative programs come and go over the years. So what makes this version of this BRIC different from previous versions?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, there's always that first time you're doing things, so you learn a lot from that experience. So not just the GLCs, but we ourselves, Cradle, as a project execution agency as well, learn a lot on how to better make sure that the projects that go through these programs are actually meeting all the targets and creating that larger impact that we're looking for. So things like, how do we better approach the corporates on, because we need to understand how they do things as well. Their operating structure, their governance are slightly different than how startups are like. So to marry the two ecosystems together, I think that was one of the bigger challenges for last year. But I'm pretty sure that this will further advance in 2026. So we'll make it better and actually more impactful even in 2026. Hence why we are actually extending the participation not just for GLCs, but for public listed companies as well and other MKD-owned companies for 2026.
And there's this recent stats where Kuala Lumpur recently climbed into top 20 emerging startup ecosystem systems globally, with ranking 18th, and early stage funding jumped over 40% in the past 2.5 years to 1.5 billion ringgit. So with this momentum, why aren't more corporates aggressively collaborating with startups, and how does this program, this BRIC program, address this disconnection?
That is actually before. Now, the interest has gone up.
Okay.
What we're seeing so far, we haven't even launched 2026, and already the request of interest for this program, for the 2026 version, is already outpacing last year's. So I think that interest is building up. So more and more of that will be coming. Yeah.
So when BRIC works the way it's intended, right? What concrete changes or the kind of impact that should we see on the ground, especially within participating organizations and also industries together?
Yeah. Three main things that we're looking for. Obviously, the first one is for the corporates. Right? So what does it mean for the corporates? It means that, so that they don't get left behind. The world of technology advancements are moving really, really quickly. AI, the robotics, the tech and everything is moving really, really quickly. So we can't have the heartbeat of Malaysia's economy, our big corporates, being left behind from an innovation perspective. So we need to ensure that they stay at the sharp end of that. And by being innovative, by really catalyzing and strengthening innovation processes within the corporates itself, that's one of the number one aim that we're looking for. Yes, last year we opened it up to just the GLC, but the bigger impact that we want to see is actually the whole of corporate Malaysia getting into that bandwagon to start to innovate, to start to work with researchers, to start to work with startups and really drive corporate innovation forward. Number two, for the startups in Malaysia, for the researchers in Malaysia, this provides an avenue of market access, a large market access base, not just a small one, whether before it's tough to really penetrate the corporate side of Malaysia, but now it's opening up. So hence, it not just provides a platform for them to do proof of concept, but also a place where they can try out new ideas and get new feedback from the corporates on how to make new innovations in the future. And that leads to the third part. Now, the third part is about really strengthening Malaysia's innovation value chain. So that value chain stemming all the way from researchers to the innovators, to the startups, to the corporates, to the public listed company, that chain needs to be strengthened. And really, we need to make it more vibrant so that it goes around. So whatever solution that comes from the lab goes to the market, and then the new ideas, new requirement comes back into the lab to research the new technologies, new innovations that are going to come, that's going to be in demand in the future. And that completes that cycle of the innovation value chain. And overall, it will then impact the country, right? Become a more innovation-led economy.
But coming and moving towards that outcome, there's often a gap between policy ambition and also actual delivery. So who is responsible for making sure the big program translate into real execution rather than just remaining a high-level policy initiative?
Well, I think the way big is structured is actually very strong because at its very top, it is driven by two ministries. Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation mostly, as well as Ministry of Finance. So two ministries are very much involved in this and are very, very interested to really push this forward, and we're getting a lot of support in terms of executing this actually. And then it also supports the wider Gear Up initiative by the government as well, which focuses on strengthening the role of GLCs and GLICs in driving high-value investments under the Economy Madani concept. And then, of course, Cradle, being the execution agency, we have our track record of, we've done open innovation programs with My Hackathon, national level hackathons, and other innovation programs. So we've dealt with a lot of startups. We have a big base of startups. Right now, we are tracking more than 5,000 Malaysian startups and even 10,000 ASEAN-based startups as well under our Startup ASEAN mandate. So we do have a lot of that. And then when we marry that with the strength of the corporates to ensure that this program can really go in and really be impactful as it is intended to be.
I understand that this is not for every company, and I mean, not every company can participate. So what are you looking for when selecting corporates under BIG, and what actually signals organizational readiness to you?
Like in all our programs, the main thing, and we are very cognizant about this, is because we are utilizing public funds. So when we're utilizing public funds to do a program, we must make sure that it is impactful, right? So the three things that we look for in any of the proposal that we receive under this big program is, number one, is the readiness of the corporate itself to go into this journey, because it is not a 10-year program. It's actually about a year and a bit, right? And then number two, commitment. So we have seen some corporates who kind of like, sometimes when the economy goes down and then corporates start to scramble and start to look for new things to do, and then they start up an innovation department or something like that.
Correct.
And then when the economy goes back up again, and then suddenly, it's business as usual, go back to the normal business, that innovation stalls. So commitment is actually very important because, yes, it is a one-year program, but the actual journey itself is actually far longer than that, right? So commitment is important. And lastly, of course, the most important thing is the impact itself. Okay, the impact for the business itself. So how is it going to drive new business areas? How is it going to expand? How is it going to impact, of course, the country and the people as well? Those are the three main areas that we look for in every proposal that we receive.
I want to look at the impact that you want to achieve from the pilot phase that you've done before. What has BIG delivered so far, and any early examples that demonstrates the program's direction or potential?
A lot, actually. 8 GLCs were selected in the first phase, ranging from the people like Senviro, Bank Islam, Celcom, DG, Malaysia Airlines, TNB, SP Setia, Simda B, E.co as well. So it ranges from telcos to airlines to banks and real estate.
Wide ranges, yeah?
A very wide range. So from those 8 that we've seen so far, like you said, it's all from various industries, but you'll be amazed at the progress that they have actually achieved so far is so close to what we have actually planned for them actually. So we are very much on track, and we are already past our midway point, and the impact that has already been generated from the program thus far, what has been identified, not just solves the initial problem statements that were put up, but actually new things are being created. New areas are actually being identified as opportunities. So that is the value add to the GLCs that have gone into this program. Secondly, interestingly, also is the startups that are involved. So it's not just about corporates actually innovating and finding new solutions. The startups that are involved in this more than 20 startups. So you remember 8 GLCs, and now there's more than 20 startups are actually being engaged in this actually. And majority of them are Malaysians.
Okay.
And some of them are actually Cradle grant recipients.
Okay.
Even better in a sense. So we can see this collaboration, the impact, it's not just about corporate surgery. It's a far larger play here that we're looking at, far larger impact that we are targeting.
But finally, for this session, Norman, we want to look at the GLCs and Malaysian-owned PLCs that's watching us right now, that tuning in right now. How can they actually take part in this big program? What can they do? And what's the first step if they're serious about embedding innovation into their operations? So what's the first step?
Well, the first step, of course, is to email your interest to us. So we have an email, a very simple email, big@cradle.com.my.
Okay.
Very easy. big@cradle.com.my. So if you have an idea, so we do have a bit of a criteria. So you must either be a GLC. If you are a public listed company, we are looking at those that are having more than 500 million annual revenue. And of course, MKD owned companies as well. So those are the 3 major categories that we're looking for big for 2026. And then of course submit your interests, and then we can engage, and we actually do run some engagement programs like workshops or something like, just to refine your idea a little bit, just to understand a little bit more about what your company is looking for, what kind of innovation are you looking at, and then we can refine the proposal, and then we submit it. And then it will be assessed by a supervisory committee and everything. And then hopefully we can announce the first cohort very, very soon.
So they can actually find all this info on your website?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Or they can contact us directly.
Amazing. So Norman, again, thank you so much for sharing those insights. And as we heard, the big program is just another innovation initiative. It's a structured pathway to deliver real outcomes, real deployments, and real industry impacts. And again, for GLC and Malaysian-owned PLCs, if you're interested in participating, you can register by emailing at big@cradle.com.my. So that's all for now. You can find this whole discussion on all of our social media platforms, and that includes Astro, AWANI.com.